just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Wealth and fame, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big bang, wherever there's a hang.
Welcome, midnight viewers, to a very special Von Doom Fest, right in the smack dab in the middle of our regular coverage of everything MCU on our way to Doomsday. They went and released a new MCU film. In fact, they released a new Spider-Man movie, and we just talked about Spider-Man, so how fortuitous overall. We're talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. It was directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who was the director of Shang-Chi, written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, produced by, who cares about producing, starring Tom Holland, Zendaya, Sadie Sink in an unnamed role, Jacob Batalon, John Bernthal, and definitely the Punisher, Florence Pugh's in this, I'm spoiling that for everybody, Marissa Tomei's also in the movie, flashbacks everybody, and Mark Ruffalo. This movie just came out, so we are sensitive to everyone's needs. This is going to be spoiler and non-spoiler discussion, and we will let you know when we get to the actual spoilers. We will announce it. I'll yell it. I don't know. I'll put up a fucking gong or something. But I want to talk about this entire fucking movie because it has ramifications for everything we've been discussing up until recently. HP.
Hey.
Was this your first time seeing Brand New Day?
It was. My custom these
Where
days.
did you see it? Where did you see it?
Oh, I saw it at the Regal Cinema. Not a very glamorous cinema. In fact, it was rather disappointing because it was assigned seats, but I didn't get one of the motorized reclining things.
Oh man.
That was the only disappointment in this whole spoiler. That's if that's the only thing that disappointed me about this movie, then we've all won.
I myself saw it at a random theater here. I'm not going to name any of them because they're all terrible here. I don't vouch for any of the quality of the theaters here in Las Vegas.
Can I just say before we move on, the quality of theaters overall, and I'd say over the last 5 to 10 years, is absolutely abhorrent. It's no longer I think if a movie theater opens, you've got a good window of maybe 2 years while it's got the new car smell, so to speak, before it just goes downhill. And this place was just no exception. But I will say this. And I know you're going to disagree with me on this. I opted to see Brand New Day in 3D. Did you see it in 3D? Probably not.
No,
I guess.
Of course not. 3D does nothing for me. There's a novel effect for about 3 minutes at the beginning of the film, and then everything just flattens out for me. It might just be a quirk of my vision, but it really the effect is 100% lost on me.
Okay. I thought, for what it's worth, it worked really well in 3D. And in fact, I think it felt like some of the shots were specifically engineered for 3D, even though I'm sure it was all post-converted. But I just for anyone out there who's interested, I would say the 3D for me worked gangbusters.
Where were we when we last left Spider-Man? That was Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh, that naughty Doctor Strange. He wiped everyone's memories. So effectively what we're getting here is a hard reboot of Spider-Man in the middle of a film series of Spider-Man. And we've kept our lead. It's kind of ingenious in a way. And I think that I kept feeling that throughout the entire film, that this really felt like an origin story without having to go over the same fucking origin of Spider-Man.
Well, they hooked me from the very beginning because we had our traditional Marvel logo at the beginning of the movie, and they introduced it by basically showing scenes from all the prior Spider-Man movies. But every time you see Tom Holland, he would fade away, giving you this, reminding you that no one remembers who he is. So it's like him going in to kiss MJ, and he fades away. I don't know about you, Father Malone, but that immediately tugged at my heartstrings before a single word had been uttered.
It's attention to detail, and this is a flick entirely filled with attention to detail. The neat trick of doing fan service without slowing us down or taking us out of it. All the fan service happens in this opening. Where we're kind of catch up to who Peter Parker is now and what his relationship is with Ned and MJ. all the while giving us all the splash panels from all of our favorite fucking comic books from forever.
Yeah.
It's sort of insane, man. It felt up to date and it felt
Yeah.
grittier than we've gotten before. It felt more real world than we've gotten before. At the same time, some of the more outlandish villains, Tombstone shows up in this
Yeah.
for fucking 2 seconds. It was so fucking weird, man.
It's
I love that he's
crazy.
threatening to throw Spider-Man off a building, by the way, as if that isn't Spider-Man's thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, Brand New Day is really the first movie that kind of look. I loved all three of the prior movies. Let's make no mistake, but this one really gets at the Spider-Man that I love. This is the one that he's no longer a kid in school because of the circumstances of the prior movie's ending. He's taken on the mantle. He's primarily fighting basically street crime. It's no longer about aliens coming to try and blow up the earth or whatever the case may be. It's he's living on his own. He's dealing with the repercussions of being an adult in this world that no longer remembers who he is, and he's desperately trying to get past the memory of his best friend and his lost love. It's fantastic. I was grabbed that montage. I was grabbed immediately.
As great as the last 3 films were, that was Spider-Man always in the shadow of the Avengers. He basically was an Avenger for each of those films. He always had that backup. And here it doesn't feel like that, although he now has his own sort of team that he kind of runs with and can talk to and interact with. But it's a whole different dynamic. It feels much more immediate.
Also, I need to mention like this movie was not shot in New York. This was shot in London, and yet this was the most New York of all of it. Felt if I did not know that it was filmed in London, I would not have known that. They did a wonderful job of making London double for New York.
Glasgow, Scotland as well.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah, movie magic, baby. You're right. This one does feel more New York than any of the others,
Yeah.
and somehow they nifty tricks each
Great.
and every way. Speaking of nifty tricks, look, we just talked about Spider-Man. Everyone knows that I love those movies. I think they're really, really good. However, there is a electricity to the action in this film. It's the best action of any of the Spider-Man movies to date.
100%.
I'm going to say that across the board, there's my hot take, all of the Spider-Man movies. This one felt as close to comic book as you can get while remaining real world in a bizarre sort of mashup. And it felt there was an extra snap to all of the action here where you can really follow the geography of all of what's happening in the scene. It never feels like they're cheating by shaky cam or, like quick edits to hide action. And we'll talk about a particular thing later on, but I think Destin Daniel Cretton is just he's the best guy working at the MCU right now. This was a superior work.
This was a big jump up from the last, and I love the last 3, and this one's better.
Because, I won't say it's easy to do any of those action sequences, but it's well known that those are all prevised by the Marvel team and down to here's the lens you're going to use when you shoot this sequence, right? So you can still fuck those up, but it's easier to not fuck those up. What's harder to do is the human drama of it, because for all the action stuff I'm talking about, all of the in-between action set pieces, I never felt like I was waiting for a set piece in this movie. All of the human stuff was just as riveting.
Yeah, a couple things on that. First of all, this movie felt a lot less like I was watching pixels move across the screen during these action sequences, and it felt more like, I'm going to use air quotes, real fights with real people. I know a lot of that is computer aided, and probably a great deal of it is CG, and I didn't even realize it. But it's my understanding that they had Jackie Chan's stunt team working on this movie, which explains why a lot of the movies have the electricity of a good kung fu movie, and the sort of the visceral feeling that you get when watching a good action scene in a Jackie Chan movie or Jet Li or whatever. Because at the end of the day, what Spider-Man does has the sort of feeling of good karate. He's dodging, he's doing all this crazy stuff, and we'll talk about that scene in a little while, I'm sure. But yeah, I agree with you 100%, Father Malone. The action in this, hats off, because it felt grounded and it felt, like you said, immediate.
Remember when Quentin Tarantino was on the MTV Movie Awards and he came out to introduce Jackie Chan and he kept insisting on calling him Jackie Chan. And like he said it like 23 times when he needn't have said it at all. He's just there to introduce the guy, but he just when you see a Jackie Chan movie, you want to be Jackie Chan. Like what is he doing?
So terrible, so terrible. But
HP, what's the story here? What's our plot? What's our situation?
one of the things I really liked about this is that there's all the human drama and all the action, but it kind of works as kind of a detective movie in a sense, because what's happening is while you have Peter dealing with the after effects of the spell and all this kind of stuff, he kind of stumbles into this plot where there's some being or beings, we're not sure who, they're trying to break into the Department of Damage Control. We don't know what they're looking for in there, but they're trying to break in, and it's some sort of. Uh, I'm trying not to spoil things here, but if you've seen the trailer, you know that it's somebody who can leap from person to person psionically, and it's Peter trying to figure out who it is, what they're after. And he's leaning on his support network to do that. There's a detective named Detective DeWolf who comes straight out of the comics.
I love DeWolf, by the way.
She's fantastic. And also, as you said, the Punisher, they become kind of an odd couple of sorts. And I love, I mean, I confess I haven't seen a lot of Daredevil slash Punisher on Disney Plus, but I mean, Bernthal just inhabits the character. You don't need me to tell you that. People who are big fans of him, and although I understand they watered down the character quite a bit for this movie, he's fantastic. And it's the ease with which because these two actors, Holland and Bernthal, have been working together or in some capacity since Holland was 17 years old. So there's a history there, and you can tell they're enjoying every minute of their time on screen. So anyway,
here's another hot take, by the way. This was an interesting thing seeing this movie so close to the Odyssey, which they're both in as well, and they share scenes in that as well. John Bernthal and Tom Holland are the best things in the Odyssey. Of all the performances in that movie, they are the best, those two.
Wow, it almost makes me want to see it.
No, don't see it. It's terrible, but they're real good.
I will say another side note for you. The only thing that distracted me throughout this whole movie is clearly next door to my theater, they were showing a showing of the Odyssey. So during all these quiet moments, the theater was shaking with that bass rumble because obviously there's some kind of action scene going on in the Odyssey that I don't know what. That was a little distracting, but that's no reflection on the movie at hand.
The idea that they've watered down the Punisher is kind of silly because whenever the Punisher would show up in a Spider-Man comic, and I know because I read them all because I was obsessed with the Punisher during the 1990s, like all stupid, revenge-obsessed young men, he never acted as bloodthirsty as he does in the television series anyway when he's around Peter Parker. I mean, Frank Castle has a tender side to him, and I think that's what this movie is absolutely playing on. And we get it kind of more impactfully than we even got it from him on the show. Just the brief, well, we'll get to that.
But it felt like watching them on screen and doing their thing, it really felt like a Marvel team up that I remember as a kid. And it's a cliche to say I wanted more of that because I think the movie is perfectly fine with what you get. But I love the fact that these two characters who are so within themselves and so lonely by virtue of what they've gone through, they're kind of each other's lifeline in a funny way, even though, like I said, they don't agree on anything in this movie. Certainly not their approach to fighting crime, but it's so fantastic to the degree that I can't wait to see this movie again when it comes out on streaming, so I can enjoy their interactions again.
I found the Punisher to be the funniest part of this movie, actually. Like he made me laugh a lot during this film.
Oh yeah, he had. I mean, and I have to say, it was a pretty full theater. The showing that I saw. I mean, I know they're reporting that, like, I mean, look, the movie made almost $1 billion globally over the weekend. So people are coming out to see this movie. But
That's one of three major action set pieces here in the film. And for the first time ever during a Marvel film, I really felt the passage of the acts. I felt Act One sliding into Act Two, and then finally in Act Three. They feel like almost three distinct movies, or if you will, three issues of a comic book. If this isn't the most comic book movie of all time, I don't know what the fuck is. Just the interaction between Peter Parker and Frank Castle, as casual as it is, sort of belies that, you know. And yes, obviously, all this other media is out there for you to consume. But if this was your first Spider-Man movie, it wouldn't feel weird at all. Like how easygoing everyone is with each other and how known each other is. You know, like I like that there's this weird little network of street level heroes finally in the MCU.
yeah, absolutely. And it like I said, it felt lived in, and it's wonderful the way, I mean, we're so used to in these movies that because of J. Jonah Jameson, like Spider-Man's basically demonized for every single movie, but this one is one of the first that I can think of where he's universally loved in New York. You don't get any of that. He's a menace, or, you know, I don't know what he's up to. He's a vigilante. He's working with the police essentially in this. They're feeding each other tips and talking pretty much daily on the phone about this, that, and the other thing. That's wonderful to see too, because that's something we really haven't seen before in these movies.
It's like Batman and Commissioner Gordon if they liked each other and wanted to hang out.
Right, because she's genuinely the detective is really concerned for well, she doesn't know him as Peter, but she's concerned for Spider-Man because she can tell, and we can see it because Holland is such a great fucking actor. But you feel the weight of, you know, the burden of what he's putting himself through, and not to mention all of the changes that his body is going through, which I'm sure we'll get to. But you know, there are moments in this where you can just feel the exhaustion coming off of Tom Holland or the character of Peter Parker because he's taken on so much trying to get away from his past, basically.
The first big action sequence where we hook up with the Punisher and we kind of get at what our villain is at is the attack on the Department of Damage Control with a tank. During that sort of interlude where we get not introduced, but reintroduced, because he appears a couple of times in this movie, and that is Mac Gargan finally showing up as the Scorpion. Michael Mando. Yeah. If you haven't seen Better Call Saul, everybody, please go see Better Call Saul.
Or even Breaking Bad. He was fantastic in that as well.
Michael Mando is just fucking awesome, and this movie needed more Scorpion. Scorpion, when I was little, Scorpion was my favorite Spider-Man villain. I just thought it was such a weird, cool costume.
The costume was weird, yeah. Sort of segmented, and it covered.
He's got like a balaclava on, like with this green balaclava, just his weird eyes poking out, and this segmented tail. Like, what is this man all about? I mean, it's a pretty great real world interpretation of this like harness thing with the scorpion tail. Again, begging the question, where the fuck did he get that? Like, what has transpired since Homecoming?
Yeah, true, because he would have gotten it through the Vulture, right? That was part of the tech that he developed based off of the recovered technology from the Chitauri.
But who knows? There are so many random elements still at play in the Marvel Universe. Anyone remember the Power Broker? Remember she was out there? She used to be Agent 13, Peggy Carter's fucking granddaughter or grandniece or whatever.
Oh, from the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
The Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's right. Yeah, that was kind of dropped and never picked up again.
What happened to her, man? She was supposed to be a major player on the MCU.
So it was really good to see the Scorpion again. Although technically he's the Scorpion, but he's really not the Scorpion. Spoiler.
Yeah, well, no spoiler, because it is what you said. Our antagonist in the film can leap from body to body and possess them, and so Peter keeps having conversations with multiple people as this thing jumps from person to person. Since that cat's out of the bag, I don't think that's really a spoiler anyway. I did want to mention that when I was talking about the action in this film, it's easy when you have the Marvel team previs everything for you to go do that sequence, right? But a sequence where, and they do this a lot, where the villain is jumping from body to body to body, and the camera is never stops moving, and it's all just choreography. It looks so fucking cool. Want to talk about practical effects? It's just people reacting to being taken over, and then the previous one falling to the ground. It's fucking cool, man, and they do it a lot. They could have done it a lot more, and I still would have been okay with it.
It was cool, and just a little bit of Foley work in the background to convey that whoosh of someone leaping into somebody else. But yeah, it's all choreography. I mean, anybody could do it, but it's so tightly, choreographed and filmed, and that actually becomes part of the detective work that Peter does, because he figures out through his what's his computer. Evie, played by Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts comes into. They got these like super like hardcore, really good actors doing all of the voiceover stuff in these movies.
But he uses his computer to figure out the maximum distance that somebody can leap, and then he uses that against, because he never stopped being the brilliant geek that we know from all of these movies, or that Peter Parker is at his core. He's a scientist. And he applies that now to fighting criminals on a street level. It's awesome.
But let's apply some pressure to Peter Parker when we get into the second act, when MJ and fucking Ned move back to New York City, and now he has to interact with them frequently. Holy fuck,
man! It's
Tom Holland, man. You see everything on that kid's face.
You know what? I a couple things about that. Like, first of all, Tom Holland at this point is my Spider-Man. Like, I can't imagine a better fit. One thing that I love is that they don't try to hide the fact that he's a little shorter than everybody else, because you see him standing up next to MJ, and it's clear. Yeah, for some reason, I appreciate that he's not afraid to be vulnerable in a lot of different senses. But I really think, he's somebody who takes the role so seriously, and by all accounts, he went above and beyond to make this a special movie. The rumor, the legend is that he was on the Odyssey and observing Christopher Nolan and watching what it took to make that movie. He basically got back in touch with the folks at Sony and said, look, we need to step up our game. This is how you make a movie. And I know he was involved with the story and the writing, and oftentimes when an actor gets that involved, it spells doom, because they have egos and that comes into play. But I get the sense here, without knowing the man, that he just wants this to be the best movie it can be for the fans, because it's a mantle that he's assumed. He's now, the third movie Spider-Man, but obviously there's Nicholas Hammond and all the other interpretations, and they have to come before him. So
he's got 4 solo movies on his own and half a dozen other appearances. So he's Spider-Man, everybody. Just by volume.
10 years he's been playing this character. So I just think Sony was dealt an ace by getting this guy to be Spider-Man, because from Civil War I knew that he was something special, and he's only matured gracefully in that role over time. So I can't say enough good things about Tom Holland and what he brings dramatically to this movie. Not just the physical stuff, because he can do the flips and he's believable physically, but boy oh boy, when he interacts with MJ and Ned, and you see the sadness on his face, dealing with them, and all the unspoken things that he wants to say, but he just can't say it. I'm not afraid to say that there are moments during this movie where I felt my eyes welling up, because it was so heavy, the things that he's going through, and there's a switcheroo that happens where I was this close to crying, and then you realize that it's actually the villain talking.
Okay, listen, I fucking bawled my eyes out multiple times in this movie because I'm a big softie, you know that. And let's talk about that one scene right fucking now, because that's the major moment. Look, there's a great action sequence in this act of the movie, but This was the whole fucking thing for me, and sorry if I'm spoiling it, but it's a minor moment that it's not giving any plot away or anything. But
Well, it's minor, but it's major in terms of the emotions and what he thinks is happening.
and speaking of switcheroo, it starts off as kind of the dopiest scene ever, where he and MJ are on a roof together, and he explains he kisses her, and then she suddenly remembers everything, and it's this like almost fairy tale moment, and then it's the villain has jumped into MJ's body. Once that occurs, all of that person's thoughts are available to them, so now they know everything about Spider-Man and use that against him to fuck with him. And that's when I started crying, man, because that was literally the cruelest thing that could have been done to him at that moment.
He uses the word unforgivable when he's talking to this villain, and there's no better word to describe what happened, because the villain used his emotions and his need to get through to MJ against him in the most cruel way possible. And up to that point, I mean, I was suckered into it. I thought, like you, the fairy tale moment had kind of come true for him, and maybe there was some part of her that remembered who he was. And I was just like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for the last, whatever, we have 4 or 5 years, 6 years it's been. And it was like I went from like this sort of elation and emotion to like, oh my God, they went there. That's fucking cruel.
Okay. Another thing going on in the film, this movie is about moving on. It's about evolution in a way. And that's really present. You've seen it in the trailers. Peter himself is undergoing changes genetically. The arachnid portion of his DNA is writing itself and making itself known. He can now, to his own disgust, make webs from his wrists like Tobey Maguire before him. We even get a go web scene, like hey, come on, webs, let's go, give me some webs.
He references Peter too. He's like, well, Peter too had him. Let's do this. And you see how clumsy he is, because he physically can't use his artificial web shooters anymore. It just doesn't work.
I did not understand that. That felt like a gaffe to me, where I don't understand how his body is rejecting the artificial web shooter. Couldn't he have just reattached them in a different portion of his body? Like, they are just a little gun, basically.
I took it as he couldn't keep them there because it was too painful, the way that his organic web shooters were sticking. They don't explain it. I agree with you there that there's no depth.
It's a contrivance to get him to use his natural web shooters.
It is. And conveniently, there's a hole it punches a hole in his costume where the web shooters can shoot out, which doesn't seem to affect their efficacy in any way. But it's a wonderful sequence when he's trying to figure out how to use these new organic webs. And I mean, it's kind of a metaphor for coming, if you will. It's just sort of splatting and going all over the place, and he's sort of disgusted by it because it's puberty. Let's just call it what it is. It's like a metaphor for puberty, basically.
The web slinging in this movie is par excellence, man. Everything that they did right in every other movie, they've seemed to have combined into the most breathtaking stuff I've ever seen. The most, I'm going to say it again, immediate stuff. When they go point of view on it, you really feel there. It's insanity.
Yeah, and that part of that is that's where the 3D. I know it's not your thing, but the 3D really does sell that. It gives you that vertigo feeling. But yeah, the web slinging, and I understand that they took the Insomniac Spider-Man video games for some inspiration there, because the web slinging in that, I mean, you can finish the game, but then I just like to hop back in and just web sling across the city because it's so much fun. He's doing these tumbles and he's saving himself at the last minute from hitting the ground. It's all the stuff that you see in the movie, but it's so, again, it didn't feel like I was watching just pixels move across the screen. It felt real somehow, that in a way that look, I'm not to denigrate the past movies, because some of the web slinging, even in like Spider-Man 2, that's still really good and it holds up, but it doesn't compare to this, not at all.
Not even remotely. The previous Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies don't compare to this. I mean, previous Tom Holland Spider-Man movies don't compare to this. Because this arachnid thing is starting to take over to the point where he loses control completely. Once again, involving poor Macagargan. Spider seeks out another bit of advice from another superhero. It's another superhero here in the city. Speaking at teaching at Empire State is Bruce Banner. Now, you've seen him in the trailer. You know Hulk's in this movie. We all know Hulk's in the movie.
Yeah, and I have to say, one kind of bummer is that they spoiled. Look, we saw him in it, but they spoiled the fact that the Hulk appears in the movie. And if they had kept that under wraps, that would have been such a wonderful reveal in this movie. Because the idea is and this is right from the comics again. Like, the Hulk never, the heroes don't stay static forever. So what you have is there's something that happened. They don't really explain it, but suddenly now the Hulk is back to being a savage beast that Bruce has to keep tamped down. And so he has these inhibitor things that he wears on his hand to keep him from transforming into the Hulk. And he has some very wise he gives some great counsel to Peter Parker.
Well, yeah, because Peter Parker wants to create his own version of it, and the idea is that I will. Well, what's funny is the inhibitor in Banner's use is it just keeps it at bay. It if this thing goes if this thing breaks, then the Hulk is free to sort of come out, and I'm no longer Bruce Banner, and it's the Hulk. And Peter is trying to figure out ways to pacify the parts of his personality or the parts of his spider self that he doesn't like and keep the parts that he does, which is not possible. But okay, that's neither here nor there. The interesting part is, and will have ramifications in the MCU going forward, is Banner has an inhibitor specific to gamma radiation to keep the Hulk at bay, but what Peter is suggesting is an inhibitor that just inhibits any superpowers, and he goes about making himself one so he can tackle the spider. That's a huge problem I see going forward, my friend. His little invention.
Well, so does Bruce. Bruce tells him outright, well, how do you determine what's good, what you're inhibiting is good and what's bad? And he gives him this food for thought. And I had the same sort of thought in the back of my mind, like what's keeping somebody from using this tech to suppress a mutant's power, for example, or anything that you find undesirable in somebody else.
You could put it on Captain America. He'd just be Steve Rogers again.
He wouldn't. The super soldier thing would cease to function, right?
Peter Parker,
Yeah.
don't go meddling in affairs that are beyond you. Haven't you done enough, Peter, with Doctor Strange? What are you doing, man? Why don't you go have Strange give you a spell and then take out the spider portion of you?
But that's always been one of the more endearing aspects to me of Spider-Man through all of these movies is that, look, he's just trying to do the right thing, but because of his naivete and because he up to a point this was new to him, he fails, and he fails a lot. And I wonder, like you, that maybe this is something that will cause problems in the unintended consequences in the future. Maybe it's something he should have. Obviously, he should have just embraced this metamorphosis that he's going through. But yeah, it's an interesting dilemma that he's faced with there. Well, let's back up for a minute because you kind of touched on this. I assiduously avoided anything that could be construed as a spoiler up till because I saw this on the Sunday after it premiered, so I was in pretty good shape. I was not prepared to see Yelena in this movie, and it was a wonderful reveal, and she's very funny in this. So I really dug the fact that, hey, because look, I and probably 99% of the people who saw the trailers and followed this movie knew who the antagonist was going to be, and I was proven right. But it was nice to see that the movie could still surprise me in little ways, like having, the now Black Widow in the movie in a semi-prominent sort of cameo. I like that.
Yeah, they really ought to just give her the Avengers as team leader, right?
Yeah, she's plugged into everything. I mean, she is a leader.
I really loved Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, but this is a better Black Widow.
I gotta. Well, yeah. I guess through no fault of Scarlett Johansson, I buy uh, Florence Pugh as Black Widow.
I get the world weariness of it, but the also sort of the above it all sort of humorous take on everything. Like she's perfect.
She's great, and she's great in this. Again, I can't say enough good things about it.
God damn, we're just gonna keep heaping on the love. So look, everything's barreling towards the Department of Damage Control. Clearly, something's going on in there. Our antagonist is doing everything in their power to get into that fucking building and reveal whatever the secret is, while Peter is hunting them down and using the services of the Punisher along the way. And I guess now we're going to start talking about spoilers. The movie's great. I'll sort of wrap it up overall before we do that and just say this is the best Spider-Man movie.
Easily, and that's a high praise because the other ones were no slouches, but this one is better. The direction is solid, the action is amazing, and the human stuff is really, really piercing. It's fantastic.
And all the MCU connections and setups and the usual folderol that bogs down most MCU movies, it feels of a piece here. It doesn't feel out of place. It just feels like part of the organic plot going on. There's no suddenly we're at Randy's Donuts with Samuel Jackson for no good reason. This is a little more organic than that. Okay, villain is obviously Sadie Sink has been playing the villain, and then some idiot revealed it on the red carpet, and then it's Jean Grey. It's our not our first X-Men in this universe, because we technically had Wolverine, we technically had a Professor X before, but this is the first this universe mutant. This is our first new mutant without being one of the new mutants. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I called it. I remember I was going in. I saw it with my son, and we were talking beforehand. And I said, I think this antagonist is going to be Jean Grey. All the signs point to it. He had a very different opinion on who it was going to be, and I wish I could remember who he thought, because it was actually an interesting theory. But as soon as Peter Parker has done search the database and said, "Oh, this is Jean Grey," I looked at my son and I kind of nodded, and he said, "Yep, you were right." So it was not a shock, because you couldn't the nature of this person's powers, as shown in the trailers, the fact that Sadie Sink obviously resembles some form of Jean Grey with the red hair. I mean, it was no one's surprise.
No, and however, I'm glad that it reveals, like, I don't know, an hour into the movie, basically, is when we get that reveal. This is a 2.5 hour movie. So this wasn't, we're just fucking chasing a hooded figure for 2 hours, and then the last half hour, oh, it's Jean Grey. What does that mean? This is as much a Jean Grey story as it is Peter Parker's story, as it turns out. My favorite portrayal of Jean Grey so far, and all deference to Famke Janssen and the girl from Game of Thrones.
Sophie Turner?
Sophie Turner. Good for you.
Yes. I remember it. I haven't seen those X-Men movies, the original X-Men movies, in a long, long time. And but I don't remember. I mean, obviously Famke Janssen's a fantastic actress, and she's, obviously beautiful. But I could not tell you anything specifically defining in her interpretation of the character.
Because it was bland as fucking milquetoast. It was just, there was nothing there.
But in fairness, that was their first stab at bringing the X-Men and having an X-Men movie in a big way. So I don't fault them for that at the time. In retrospect, maybe it could have been a little more of an interesting. The character could have been written a little better, but in this case, what's funny. What I thought was interesting was, well, I guess we'll talk about her motivations. I'll get to what I was going to say if we talk about the character's motivation.
She's trying to save her sister. Her sister has the same power. Sarah Grey, her older sister, has been kidnapped by the Department of Damage Control. That's the actual villain in this movie. What
I thought was interesting, and this is just the movies being the movies, is that Jean is supposed to be her little sister, and it's actually in reverse. It's the case that the girl playing Sarah Grey is something like 6 or 7 years younger.
Oh, how weird! Because she definitely the dynamic looks like older sister, younger sister.
Yeah, but the thing was, I don't know, I don't know anything about the character in the comics, like if Sarah Gray was meant to be her little sister, but it made me think they could have made her little sister, and it wouldn't have changed anything. That she could have been looking for her little sister.
Does that matter to you?
It doesn't. I'm just saying, like, for them to put in the effort to make this girl look older than Sadie Sink, they could have just said,
What measures did they take other than they cast an actress who looked older than the one that they cast as the lead?
"Oh, that she says it's her older
But
sister."
like they didn't use like computer generated effects.
No,
to, like,
no,
make
no,
her
no,
look
no, no.
older or
They
anything.
they didn't. But I mean, it in retrospect, when I think about it, she did look younger. Now that I know, I'm like, oh yeah, she was younger. So anyway, it's just my own little pet peeve. They could have just said she was her little sister, unless there's a good reason canonically why she's.
While you were watching
younger.
that movie, did you think that girl was younger than her?
I didn't think about it at all. It was only after I
All right,
learned.
what are we talking about here? This is such a weird avenue.
This is just a nitpick. We're just nitpicking because this has been a love fest.
Let's talk about the hand.
Oh, you want to talk about the fight to end all fights in this movie?
Yeah, let's talk about the fucking fight with the hand.
Well, the only thing that's kind of weird, here's the thing, like the hand.
The hand now works for the DODC for some reason.
That was a little. If we're talking nitpicks, that was a little weird.
Is that a nitpick? No, that was a problem.
Right.
They come like walking down the stairs, 5 members of the hand, and I'm just like, wait, like, and then I thought, wow, that's really weird that they're just like in this office building. But then I looked that they were like facing down Spider-Man and went, oh, okay, makes sense here. But still.
But they were like a hundreds years old secret organization, and now they're working for damage control. That was a little weird. But again, I see the thing is my son is always wanted to bring up these things and these little nagging things. And I go, you know what? It's all about willing suspension of disbelief here. So I am going to take my own advice and suspend my disbelief and say, fine, the hand are working for damage control.
The fucking fight scene, man. I was not prepared for a fucking martial arts extravaganza so close to the end of this movie and have it be so fucking good. This was the first time I thought, oh, I get it. They're the hand. They all move in connection with each other.
They're like hopping on each other's backs, and it was like
there's a chain of them at one point where they're like whipping each other around. I was like, I don't even know what's happening.
It's martial arts Mummenschanz is what it is.
Don't try and make me laugh with Mummenschanz,
I didn't
motherfucker.
Get you. I didn't get you. I'm sorry, but it's but it's in the Spider-Man movies. This, and I think we've used this word a few times already. It's probably the purest fight that we've ever had because, like I said, when Spider-Man does his thing, it has the vibe of karate, good karate. So to have him square off against this incredible martial arts organization, these amazingly physical martial artists, was really thrilling. And it, like I said, Jackie Chan's stunt team worked on this movie, and it showed. The martial arts in this thing are I will stack them up against almost anything. They're fantastic, and it's the added benefit
they
that
beat the shit out of him at one point, man. It's so good. It's so good.
Well, it's so clever because it's a prelude. Again, spoiler alert, to Peter finally embracing his metamorphosis, his arachnid sort of tendencies coming to the fore, because all the while he's having this sort of psychic conversation with Jean Grey, because she's in the other room kind of menacing the head of damage control, and he's trying desperately to get into this room. The hand is preventing him, and she says something.
She's making the hand prevent them.
Right. So she says
she's controlling all of the hand.
What's cool is she says something like, because they have these weapons, the damage control agents that can basically dissolve his web, his artificial web. And she says something like, isn't it ironic that this group that you're working with, they developed weapons to go against you just in the event that they need to? Is that someone you can trust? But then when
they have an entire task force ready for you, should you get out of line.
But it set up this wonderful, like, yes moment where he's finally embraced his arachnid side, and he no longer is using these artificial web shooters. So he's shooting the web, but these guns and everything are ineffectual against, because they don't know, he didn't even know he had organic webs until this whole thing started happening. So now all of a sudden their weapons are completely useless against this, resurgent Spider-Man. Yes. Oh, it was such a great moment, Father Malone.
Other great moments. We got to talk Hulk versus Spidey versus Punisher. What a fucking sequence. Now, the inhibitor, look, Peter creates the inhibitor, and he's using it on himself, and he has a spare, the universal inhibitor, and his plan is to get it on Jean Grey and then knock out her powers and then deliver her to the authorities, which he does. However, in order to get that done, he has to get through the Hulk, and not Smart Hulk, not Banner Hulk. This is the Hulk. And I, too, had forgotten how huge the Hulk is.
Yeah.
Because we get a version of him. We get the sort of Banner Hulk version just for a second or two. But then when we get full Hulk, oh my God, man. Yeah. And what a fight. It's
incredible. And it's one of those great fights where Spider-Man is squaring off against him. And just when you think that, maybe the Hulk has the upper hand, who rushes in, guns blazing, to distract the Hulk just long enough so that Spider-Man can get back on his feet, basically. But the Punisher walks in. It's great. But yeah, the Hulk in this, when he goes full Savage Hulk, is easily like 8 to 10 feet tall. He's massive. And the fight is every bit the Savage, brainless brute. He's destroying this building, and it's an incredible fight. But Frank Castle's in the middle of it, trying his best, and Spider-Man's like, "You're not. Get out of here. This is above your pay grade, Frank. This is the Hulk we're talking about here."
Okay, I'll go take care of the girl. You take care of the Hulk. You just don't want to fight the Hulk. You're scared. Yeah, you're right.
It's great, but again, and it's not technically, it's not even really the Hulk for a while. It's Jean Grey.
Correct.
Because the way it kicks off is that you see that the head of damage control and a few other functionaries are in basically like a panic room. They're holed up, and there's this banging, and every time it bangs, you see like dust come down from the ceiling, and you're like, what how is she trying to get into this room? And then that's when you realize eventually that, oh shit, she's taking control of the Hulk, and he is just, it's like Jurassic Park where you see a little cup of water that are vibrating with the T-Rex. It's the fucking Hulk, and we haven't seen the Hulk in this manner in 10 years at least,
since the opening of Infinity War. That was our last Hulk,
right?
And he got his ass kicked in that.
Yeah, and that precipitated this whole business of the Smart Hulk that we see in Endgame. It's a great
welcome back, big green fellow.
Yeah, it's a great fight. I mean, there's a lot of, I think you said this earlier, that there's a lot of character stuff, but it doesn't feel like you're just waiting for the next action scene. Everything has a place. So the character stuff works awesome, but there's no dilution of the action either, including the scene with the Hulk. And then when Jean Grey finally breaks through, by the way, she then takes control of Frank, which is kind of a scary proposition too. Cause and even there's some laughs there because for the first time in the movie, he doesn't talk like Frank. He talks like Jean Grey. It's really kind of funny.
Oh, I like when she leaps into him and she's like, "Oh, wow, there's a lot going on in here."
It's great. And it would have been nice to have a little more. I say this a lot. Maybe it was just enough Hulk, because you can't make it can't become too diluted with other characters and other set pieces. The focus is always on Spider-Man, and I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So Jean needs to get into the DODC because they have her sister. It's Marvel, when they do this right, do it completely right, where we can be on the side of the villain and the hero at the same time. I was totally with Jean Grey. I was so bloodthirsty by the end of this fucking movie because what their plan is to force her to jump, to basically lock her down and through artificial means force her to jump out of her body, and they're mapping her brain, hoping to harness that technology so that they can, put it into regular humans and have telepaths that they can control. And they killed her fucking sister doing the same thing. You said it earlier, Peter has figured out that there's this 32-foot radius that she can jump into, and they've carefully constructed a prison that's 32 feet away from her. And what they're doing by forcing her to jump over and over and over again, the unintended consequence is that they're forcing her DNA to evolve faster, and therefore her powers get infinitely stronger. The moment where she broke out, man, I was ready for her to fucking kill everybody. I wanted her to do it.
Well, it's particularly awful because through the whole movie, she keeps what she's looking for is the last message she got from her sister. And again, this is so spoilerific here, but we're past that point. The message from her sister was the word VMAX. Could mean anything. So everyone she encounters, where's VMAX? Where's VMAX? Where's VMAX? Thinking that that's going to be the key to finding out where her sister is. So she's in this prison, bolted into this chair, and as she's going through this awful situation where she's being forced to jump, she looks up and she sees a ventilation shaft above her, like a ventilation, thing, screen. And it's like she sees kind of rubbed off. It says VMAX. It really says like Ventilmax. So effectively, what the sister was sending her as a final message wasn't a clue. It was just the last thing that she saw before she died in this room, bolted into a cage like an animal being forced to do this. And that's the moment where, again, everything turns and now she evolves and they lose control of her. And she essentially paralyzes what, all of Manhattan basically at that point, essentially.
Yeah, it's like a 1 kilometer diameter around the prison that she's in becomes frozen.
Yeah.
Just on the outskirts of that is Frank Castle.
Yeah. And
now in our final hour, Frank Castle becomes the villain of this movie.
That's crazy? But you can follow his line of logic because he
was absolutely right to do it.
He gets the biggest gun that he can find that he has.
He's got a 50 caliber fucking machine gun.
It's huge, and he takes like a sniper's nest, just outside the radius of this psychic barrier, if you will. And all the while, Peter is finally broken through this door, and he's confronting her, and it's actually a very cool moment in the movie where he allows her. Well, I guess we'll get into this. We've already
no. Just talk Frank Castle right now.
So while this is happening, and it seems as if Peter is breaking through to her, and this is going to be diffused, Frank sees his moment to take her out with this 50 caliber gun. But because Peter has now had enhanced senses because of this metamorphosis he's been going through,
a spidey sense, if you will.
Spidey sense. I honestly, as silly as it sounds, I thought that this was it because he takes the bullet for Jean Grey. He sacrifices himself for her. And at that point, I said to myself, holy shit, is this the secret of the movie? Because Tom Holland's been talking about, passing on the mantle to another person. Like he's in his 30s now. He's maybe not ready to continue doing this character. So I thought, holy shit, how did they keep this under wraps? Because they set it up like a hero's death where he's like, I'm okay. And then he just collapses and he just got a 50 caliber bullet in his back. How the fuck is he going to survive this? Crazy moment.
Thanks to spider powers. Yeah, no, it is. It's a fantastic moment. And like I said, the sudden switch to Frank becoming the villain in the thing where Peter's just trying to do the right thing. And let me also praise the way I praised Doctor Strange in its ending, that this ending of this movie, for as actiony as it is and for as much fisticuffs as were given over the course of the runtime of this movie, the climax of this film is not two similarly powered people punching the shit out of each other around a room. It's a conversation. And it doesn't feel any less impactful than the Hulk raining down on Manhattan with parts of a building.
The human stuff, which is the stuff I praised, to be honest, in the first 3 movies, which is they felt almost like John Hughes superhero movies because they never lost sight of the fact that this is about these kids and his journey learning how to use these powers. But he's at his heart, he's a high school kid. So in this movie, I think they never lost sight of the fact that, as you said, this is a movie about Peter the person, not necessarily Spider-Man, the character, but Peter and Jean Grey. And the fact that it doesn't end with people beating each other into submission, but rather a tender conversation.
I mentioned I bawled a lot in this movie. This was another scene. Bringing back Aunt May to be the fucking catalyst for spinning Jean Grey's head around and pointing her in a new direction.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
insane. But and then not to mention like the sort of gut punch at the end of this movie after so
Oh, yes.
effectively Peter is recuperating. He's not quite ready to go back to being Spider-Man yet, but he has a ritual where he goes to the same bodega and buys flowers for Aunt May for her grave. And we didn't mention this, but previously one of my favorite moments in this whole movie is earlier where after Peter has basically talked to MJ, and it becomes clear that she has absolutely no memory of him at all, and there's not going to be any fairy tale rekindling of that love that they had. She says outright, I don't love you. That person you knew is not me. I don't even know you. So he swings her back to her apartment where she's living with Ned, and she says, "Hey, do you want to come up and meet Ned? I think he'd like that." And he says, "Okay." So he goes up in full costume, and now Ned obviously is like totally geeked over meeting Spider-Man because he's obsessed with the character. So that leads to the scene where the two of them are working on a Lego together, and Ned is just like, it felt like a little iota of that friendship that they had. Like you can feel Peter kind of like trying to feel what he felt before and maybe enjoying the moment for what it
Well,
is.
I mean, he says it outright. He said, "This is the best time I've had in years." And no doubt, at least 4 years, I'm guessing, because they're graduating from college in this movie.
It felt a little like in a funny way. The scene in Forrest Gump where Forrest goes to visit Jenny and then she reveals that, hey, I have a son, and he's like, would you like to talk to him? Like MJ has nothing to gain really from this, but she's like, I know you and Ned were tight. Would you like to talk to him and hang out with him for a little bit? So for that moment in time, Peter becomes that high school kid again, hanging out with his buddy, even though the buddy has no idea who he really is. And then that leads us into the epilogue of this movie where, as I said, Peter's at the bodega getting flowers and Ned is there. And they start talking, and Peter does their super secret handshake from the earlier movies, and Ned, without even realizing what he's doing, reciprocates perfectly. And the last word that we hear in this movie is Peter. Now, does he know? Does he realize who Peter is? Does this somehow?
Okay. See, they made it ambiguous because he says, "Hi, I'm Peter." And then they do the handshake. And then he says, "Peter." And he does it in a way that we're led to believe he has now realized who
Yeah.
Peter Parker is and his relationship with him. The next line could be, "How do you know how to do that?"
It could be, but also remember that at the end of that scene where they've been working on Legos, when Peter leaves the apartment, MJ slips and calls him Peter on the way out, and Ned says, "Wait, you mean Spider-Man's name is Peter?"
Ah.
So there's a lot of ambiguity there. I agree with you, but I mean, didn't
Also, Ned has fucking magic powers, baby. He can use a sling ring.
he can use the sling ring? So I don't know. My heart kind of leapt a little bit at the end because that relationship was the core part. Well, one of the core elements of that first trilogy is Ned, and he was his, what do they call it, his guy on
Man
the
in the
computer.
chair.
His man in the chair, exactly. So I don't know. After the disappointment of the fact that MJ doesn't know who he is and is blunt about it and has to be, you just want Peter to get a win in that. I think he did. I think certainly he's in a better place at the end of the movie than he was at the beginning, for sure.
Oh, and where is that? Somewhere in space.
Post credit.
Did you stay for the post credit?
Of course I did. I mean, it's.
So Ned has an app, Spider Tracker, which shows you where Spider-Man is, like with the sightings. It tracks him and sort of pinpoints it on a little map. Frank Castle actually uses it to find out where Spider-Man is in the finale of the movie.
Right.
But in the post-credit scene, the app comes to life and says, "Spider-Man found, location unknown, unknown," and it just keeps zooming out and out and out from Earth, and then it's somewhere out in space, and Spider-Man appears somewhere in space. Is this a new Spider-Man, or is Spider-Man now on Earth, whatever the fuck, where Doom is?
So that was another conversation I had with my son. And my thought is, and this is probably in retrospect, it's a little far-fetched, but my initial gut reaction was Spider-Man, Peter Parker, this character on Battle World. But it doesn't make a lot of sense because why would the Spider Tracker be working when at this point the Battle World is kind of like in its own realm and it's not really part of anything and everything else doesn't exist, kind of. So I don't know if that holds a lot of water, but that was my first gut.
Here's a theory that makes no sense. It's Venom.
That didn't even occur to me that it could be another. It could be like you could just as easily say, well, maybe it's Miles Morales. Who knows?
I'm hoping it's Miles Morales. That was my initial hope. I went, oh, is this a new Spider-Man? Are we going to get Miles finally? Like, why is he off planet? Or is he going to end up on our planet from Into the Spider-Verse? We'll get the real-world version of him in the MCU.
It's funny that there's a moment where Peter has essentially escaped from the hospital where he's been recuperating through a very funny moment where Frank puts on his mask and pretends that because there's a whole crowd massed outside the hospital, like waiting for any word. So Peter slips out with this sort of like hoodie or whatever on, and he looks over and he sees this little boy on somebody's shoulders. And the boy kind of looks at him and is like, pew, like he does like the web thing at him, kind of indicating that maybe this kid knows who he is. My son's impression was, could that be Miles Morales?
Miles has got to be older at this point because when in Homecoming, Donald Glover is what's his name? The Prowler.
The Prowler, that he figured into all of those the Miles Morales video game.
The Prowler did, absolutely.
Yeah, the Prowler did. Yeah. So you're right. He was the kid's uncle.
Because he said, like, you should clean this shit up. Like, I got a nephew around here, and like, he was talking about the weapons.
Yeah, and that was easily what, 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
8 years ago? So yeah, you're right. That would not be, again, sometimes it's easy to see, Easter eggs where there are none, perhaps.
Speaking of potential Easter eggs, when Peter is moving into his new apartment, there's a blonde, near supermodel type girl who goes, "Hey, we live on the same floor. Is that Gwen Stacy?" She's listed in the credits as apartment girl. They featured her twice.
They did, and actually, I thought for a second, until I got a good look at her, I thought, is that Betty Brant from his high school? Kind of looked a little like her, but it wasn't. I know it wasn't, but it sort of resembled her. I thought maybe that'd be an interesting thing, but
I call Gwen Stacy. I think that we're going to see the end of the MJ thing.
Yeah, well, it has to be said that Peter showed zero interest in her because once she says, "Hey, you're on my floor," right? That's when he decides to move to the studio part of apartment with all the screens and everything. He's just like, "Yeah, it's time to get out of here." Just not his type, I guess. I don't know.
But not then. But we'll see.
Well, we'll see. I mean, again, it's very tempting to jump to conclusions because anything and everything can be an Easter egg. It just, your perspective can shift on this.
Had a great time. Fucking fantastic time watching this movie.
It was an awesome, day at the movies for me as well. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I said to you when we were texting about getting on a call or getting on our recording today, I said, look, I don't really have a lot of notes, figuratively speaking, for the filmmakers because I had a great time.
I want to say it's the best in years. I can't remember the last time I had this much fun at an MCU flick.
Well, I was reading an article, and this I thought was kind of interesting. We this summer, the summer of 2026, we've had a lot of interesting success stories. Every summer, it seems like we're talking about our blockbusters in jeopardy and what do our studios plugged into what moviegoers want. And this summer, we saw movies like The Back Rooms and Obsession that were big successes, but they were comparatively small, horror movies. So it seemed to be painting the way for maybe the key to the next wave of cinema. But now this throws everything again into question because this is another old-fashioned studio blockbuster that people were predicting would be a big hit, but I don't know anyone who thought it was going to make almost $1 billion globally in 3 fucking days. So now, what conclusion do we draw from this, Father Malone?
Let Tom Holland in on the story development meetings.
God bless him. God bless the guy.
Also, keep Daniel Cretton around because he's the best of them. He's better
He
than the
is.
Russos.
I really enjoyed Shang-Chi. I will say I thought the ending sort of let me down a little bit because it just ended up being a bunch of pixels fighting each other. It had a lot of heart. That bus action scene that happens towards the beginning is
I've watched it
fantastic.
dozens of times.
It's great, and I love Simu Liu. I thought he was fantastic as the character. So yeah, and I have it. Although I have not seen it, I understand that Wonder Man was probably the best Marvel TV show in years, and of course they responded by canceling it.
Of course, anything good must go. Except Spider-Man, which seems to be getting better. So,
So it has to be said, by the way, also, and I don't know if you alluded to this yet. He was originally slated to direct the Kang Dynasty
oh my God, that would have been awesome.
before that got canceled effectively because of all the business around Jonathan Majors. So
That's the best thing that came out of that then.
yeah,
That we got
it
this movie and he directed it. Thank God.
and he would not have been available for this movie had they not delayed filming because Tom Holland was making the Odyssey. They had to delay the start of Spider-Man by 6 months, and that gave them the time to get Cretton on board and make all the necessary changes they had to make to the story to make it really work. So things kind of have a way of working out, don't they?
And now that first trilogy of films feels like high school Spider-Man, and now we're on to regular Spider-Man. It's just like the fucking comics.
Things are looking up. I'm now. Here's the thing. Do you? I know that Tom Holland walked back his original statement where he said, "I don't want to be doing this in my 30s." Now he's seen a way forward for the character. Do you think we're going to? Obviously, we're going to see another trilogy before all is said and done, at least, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, he's going to show up in either Doomsday or fucking Secret Wars, but no more or less than everybody else in those movies. But yeah, I imagine we're going to get two more of these movies, and then we're going to get Miles Morales. Is what if Miles isn't already introduced by then.
How much do you know about Miles Morales?
I know about Into the Spider-Verse amount of Miles Morales. And Across
Like,
the Spider-Verse.
yeah.
I stopped reading Look, I was never a Spider-Man reader to begin with, so he was never my jam. So once they started giving us variants, it wasn't my thing either.
Being a kind of a purist, I was always very dubious when I understood that they had another character that was kind of had this basically a variant of Peter Parker, and I was like, well, why? Peter Parker is the guy. But then I saw the Spider-Verse movies, and more importantly, I played the Miles Morales Spider-Man video games, and that gave me, funny enough, that gave me a lot of insight into the character to the point where I really embrace the idea of having this because it's so fresh and it's a wonderful spin on Spider-Man with it's a different origin, but it works really well. So shame on me for not giving it a chance.
Well, I imagine we're going to get a feature film sooner than later with Miles, so all's forgiven, HP.
If they'd only fucking finish this third Spider-Verse movie.
That is true, but that's a Columbia problem. We're talking MCU here,
Yes.
and we're going to continue to talk MCU in our next episode of On Doomfest. We are taking on Thor, that Nordic beauty, and all of his friends, the Frost Giants. Remember them? I love those Frost Giants. They should have brought those guys back, baby.
Was that a Boston pronunciation of Nordic?
Nordic?
You said Nordic.
It's not a kid.
Sorry.
I'm going down to Fenway with the
There you
fucking
go.
Giants.
Park.
All right.
I'm not going to do this. Park the car. Yeah, no. No thanks.
Hey, Sammy. All right, listen, folks. Until the Von Doomfest returns, try to enjoy the daylight.